getting scammed out of everything in my wallet by corrupt border agents, exploring the Mayan ruins where they actually filmed part of Star Wars, chicken buses, fake off-brand American shoes, and discovering one of my new favorite pueblos located next to a couple of volcanoes. All of this and more I experienced in a country I didn't really have any intentions of going to. But as luck and life would have it, I went, and there's a saying that goes like this: Se fue de Guatemala a Guatapeor. Well, I can tell you that Guatemala turned out to be Guatemejor y el mejor. So, without further ado, let me tell you about my trip in Guatemala. So for those of you who are geographically inept, let me fill you in. Guatemala is a Central American country that shares borders with Mexico, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. The currency of Guatemala are Guatemalan quetzals. $1 equates to about 7.7 quetzals. Spanish is the dominant language in Guatemala, although there are also 20 plus Mayan languages. You heard me right, Mayan is still spoken today. Guatemala is divided into 22 departments, which essentially act as states. Guatemala City, the capital of Guatemala, is divided into zones. And these zones are important to know for safety and travel. Guatemala has a level 3 travel advisory, but that's mainly because of a couple of departments plus specific zones within Guatemala City. But do not let that stop you from going to Guatemala to check out some of the more touristy areas such as Flores, Tikal, Antigua, and Atitlan. So let me just go ahead and get straight into my story with Guatemala. If you watched my Belize video, I had mentioned how I first got into Guatemala by actually crossing the Belize-Guatemalan border by foot. Just like that, we're in Guatemala. I ended up in a town called Melchor de Mensos. I got to check out a local church. Melchor de Mensos was interesting because when I walked in, I immediately thought that Guatemala felt very similar to parts of Mexico. I actually got to check out some of the local marketplaces. There's this guy who's screaming the gospel.
Aleluya. Bendito sea el nombre de Dios. Hoy tienes esa oportunidad.
So that was interesting. It was kind of sketchy, I'm not gonna lie, but I had a good time. So here's a few clips that I took from my time there. On the way back, I ended up getting stopped by a border agent. And again, I explained this more in my Belize video, but basically what ended up happening was when I was going to get my passport stamped, it turned out that I didn't get a stamp for exiting Belize and entering Guatemala. Now, to be completely fair, this was the second time I had ever crossed a border by foot. The first time being when I was crossing Mexico into Belize. I didn't have any issues getting into Belize. But getting back into Belize from Guatemala turned out to be a whole lot of frustration. This woman looks at me and she tells me, well, you need to have a stamp if you're gonna cross through here. I say, well, listen, I have a receipt signifying that I had actually gotten through. I give them a receipt. Probably shouldn't have done that because she takes it. She writes this arbitrary number, 928, hands it back to me and says, that's how much you have to pay if you want to get through to Belize. 928 quetzals is a little over $140. I end up just giving them everything in my wallet, which was a few quetzals and some Belizean dollars. Totally upset. They were telling me I had to go back to the bank, and so I just gave them all the money I had in my wallet. Fortunately, there's this Belizean woman who helped me get across, or at least communicate with the border patrol. If you are at that border crossing, this turns out to be a very common scam. What you want to do is say something like this. Ask them in Spanish if it is an official fee. Es este un cobro oficial. And if they insist on giving you a hefty fee anyways, you can ask them, Quiero hablar con Proatur. I would like to speak to Proatur. Which for my American friends is kind of like saying, hey, I'd like to speak with your manager at the Guatemalan border crossing. Unfortunately, I didn't have any more issues once I was trying to get back into Guatemala. More on that in a second. But it's important to keep this stuff in mind if you're going to the Melchor de Mensos crossing into Belize. So that was a headache. Not the best first experience getting into Guatemala, but I had to go on. So I get back to Belize, get everything sorted out. And I had ordered a private shuttle to take me from Belize into Guatemala for the following day. The shuttle I'm waiting for arrives rather late. And when they do, they're checking the list of all the people who are supposed to be on there. And I show them that I had my ticket on my phone. And the driver tells me, well, I don't have you on the list. I was already stressed out about what had happened earlier at the border. And I'm like, I don't care what I gotta do. I need to get on the shuttle because I need to get across the border. I need to keep going because I have plans. I insist. I say, listen, sir, I have a seat for myself here on this shuttle. Again, this is my first experience with Guatemala. I'm not very happy at all. So we wait for like 15 minutes or so as the driver's like calling his boss and whatnot. And it's at that moment while he's on the phone with him and we're looking at my phone that I find out I'd actually booked a ride for the following week. So I just decided to stay quiet because I can't let him see that that's the reason I'm not really on his list. Fortunately, they end up letting me get on the shuttle. He doesn't know that I'm actually booked for the next week. We get on the shuttle and I'm just like determined to get across the border. That's like my only goal. We show up at the border and it takes us like an hour and a half to get across. And the only thing I'm thinking is that I need to get my passport stamped. Fortunately, I get across with no issues. It's late in the evening. We hop on the shuttle. We get to Flores. I'm exhausted and the only thing I can think about is getting to my hostel for the night and settling in and letting my family and others know that I have arrived at my destination. And so we arrive and our driver tells us, this is like at 9 p.m. or whatever, he says that there's gonna be a tour going to Tikal the following day at like 3 a.m. and then there's another trip that's leaving for 4 a.m. At this point, I'm telling myself Tikal is the one place I was really determined to go to during my stay in Guatemala. Again, you need to understand, I never really had any intentions of going to Guatemala, but during this trip this summer, I figured, you know what the heck, I could check off Guatemala and say I have this off my list of countries that I've been to. Little did I know that going to Tikal would completely change my perspective on not only Guatemala, but it set the standard as far as some of the best ruins I would go to. I arrive in my hostel and there's like this 15-year-old kid behind the counter who checks me in, and my hostel room has like 4 beds and there's no lock. I'm not like given a key to get into my room. I could lock it from the inside, but that's about it. And there's like one shower. It's kind of I don't know, man. I'm not gonna bash on it saying it's not the Marriott, but you know, this is how I travel. I take the cheapest hostels I can find because I like saving money and it makes me feel like I'm more invested in the culture. I stay in my hostel, wake up super early the next day, make sure my phone's charged and everything, and then I get on a shuttle that takes me to Tikal. And that was one heck of an experience. So there's so much I could say about Tikal. The first thing being, turns out that's where they filmed part of one of the Star Wars films. So if you've seen this image, that's from Star Wars. We had a really good tour guide who explained to us how Tikal essentially was just this incredibly gigantic empire. And you need to look into the history of the place, but it's just baffling, these ruins. Listen, I've been to the Aztec ruins and some of the Mayan ruins that are in Mexico. If you watch my Belize video, I also went to some of the ruins there. Tikal puts like everything to shame. If there's any reason you should go to Guatemala, it's because of Tikal. They have these 2 temples in particular, and it's just unbelievable. Like, you grow up your whole life looking at this stuff on like National Geographic and whatnot, but when you see it in person, it's unbelievable.
Came from Teotihuacan.
Man, we didn't even have enough time to check out all of it. I'm gonna have to go back one day. We drive back to Flores, and Flores is essentially like this, it's almost like this island town surrounded by this lake. It's got these cobblestone roads, and you could walk around the whole town in like one day. So during my time there, I tried taking some films and some B shots of the streets and of the different buildings that are in the area. You're gonna have to go to this one taco shop called Tacos Los Peces, which, not to brag, I took a photo of my tacos, put it on Google, and it got a few likes. You're welcome. The owner is this really nice woman who's got this awesome sense of humor, but totally check it out. It's like right next to the main church and a basketball court. I walked around the town that was like connected to Flores, but yeah, I didn't really want to stay in Flores for too long because there's only so much to see. So I quickly got another shuttle taking me to Antigua. So I'm here in Antigua. I'm only gonna be here for about 48 hours. I arrived pretty early this morning. I'm gonna check out the downtown right now. It feels like Flores with the cobblestone roads, except it's just a whole lot bigger than Flores. And in Antigua, I stayed in what had to be one of the most unique hostel experiences of my life. So I wanted to show you my hostel here in Antigua. So these are called tents. Never seen this before. That's my private room right here. Complete with a light fixture. Close the door, obviously. So yeah, I've never seen this before. My room was something that they call a tent, which I guess most people would call a box or a crate. But whatever, I mean, this is traveling, and you know, the owner's super cool. But during my stay in Antigua, I checked out some local marketplaces. Got this side of the market for 10 quetzales. Here to found a bus station, specifically a chicken bus station. So chicken buses are all these really colorful buses that they have here in Guatemala. My understanding is that foreigners gave them that name because a lot of foreigners realized that they would sit on these buses alongside livestock, particularly chickens. This is incredible though. It's a plátano with, I think, chocolate.
La mola zapatera, la mola zapatera.
Checked out the main church, walked around the cobblestone roads, and there's actually this really pretty bright yellow church that's in the area, which as far as I understand is where the famous Bartolomé de las Casas served in. For those of you who are in history class, you might know that Bartolomé de las Casas was actually known for being one of the biggest voices fighting the ill treatment of indigenous people by the hands of the Spanish. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I walked around some of the local marketplaces, and halfway through I realized that my shoes were trashed and I need to get some new ones. These things are done for. So I need to find something. Now this was something I was actually really excited for. One of the funniest things about Latin America, and if you're from Latin America, please do not take offense to this, but this is true. You can find off-brand materials. This was my opportunity to get some fake shoes. Try and get these ones. Here. It's funny, like just the material feels fake. So it says Vans, however, it says Big Shoe on the bottom. And you can just feel the material is not the same quality as the Vans I would normally get back home in the US. I once bought my brother a pair of Vans in Ecuador, and they were called Yans. So the logo was different entirely. And I tried looking up where they were made and couldn't find them, but you know, that'll do. I'm actually still wearing them right here. They just like sewed on Vans. I don't know if you can see that, but the little plastic piece that the shoelaces go through are already falling off. I'm happy with it, but perhaps one of the coolest things about Antigua is that there's these gigantic volcanoes that are nearby. Many people who go to Guatemala travel there for those volcanoes. There's videos online of people hiking up to the top of these volcanoes, one of which, is it one of them or both of them? They're active, which I think is so cool. And I wanted to do it, but I didn't have time, so I'm definitely gonna have to go back. But Antigua has definitely become one of my favorite towns. It's just got this charm to it, especially with the cobblestone roads and the different churches and the colors, and it's super chill. So you need to go to Antigua. After Antigua, I ended up going back to Guatemala City, where I'd fly out into Mexico. So that was my time in Guatemala. I was actually rather surprised at how much I enjoyed my time in Guatemala. Like, if you are Guatemalan, please don't be offended by me saying that, but I don't know, it was never on my radar. And when I went, I just looked up, what are the things to do in Guatemala? Going to Tikal, going to Flores, and going to Antigua. These 3 places blew me away. Definitely some of the highlights of my summer for 2025. And if you're planning on going to Guatemala, you definitely need to check out one of those 3 places, if not all 3. I did it in like 3 days, I think. Yeah. And the Guatemalan people were just super kind. And listen, I know I say that about everywhere I go, but the reality is there's a lot of places where people are just really kind. That's what I love about traveling. You'll find good people almost everywhere you go, but you don't know until you go. And who knows, you might end up finding a country that makes one of your favorite lists, because Guatemala certainly did that, and I definitely intend on going back one day. So should you go to Guatemala? Absolutely, especially if you're one of the types like me who likes history, anthropology, ancient ruins, and architecture. Because you see, for me, Guatemala was kind of off of the beaten path of the places I was originally going to travel to in 2025, and I'm glad I did it. So I hope you go too. And if you do, let me know how it is. And if you've already been to Guatemala, where did you travel to? What did you like? What did you not like? And if you are Guatemalan, tell me, what do you love so much about your country and why people should go there? What should people know before traveling to Guatemala? And what are some things that you wish people knew about your country? So thank you for watching this episode. If you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe. I intend to put out more content about my travel videos. Please know I'm still new to this. I'm trying to figure out how to make sweet videos, but I totally intend on filming more and creating more videos like this where I talk about my travel stories. So remember, there's a great big world out there. Make sure you explore it. Whether it's Guatemala or some other place in Central America, you won't regret it. Keep traveling.